Imagine being a millionaire who has lost everything she once loved. Christmas, once the happiest time of the year, has now become a painful reminder of loss and loneliness. Beatrice has decided that this year, she will spend Christmas alone, with no parties, no joy, just trying to survive another day. But what she doesn't know is that this Christmas will be different. When she meets a widower who carries the same pain and loneliness, they are forced to work together at a charity event. What begins as a simple obligation will turn into something neither of them could have ever imagined. They are confronted with their own wounds and slowly begin to realize that perhaps love still has a place in their lives. But will the ghosts of the past allow the future to open up for them? Stay with us until the end and discover how Christmas can truly change everything, bringing new chances for happiness when least expected. Don't miss this heartwarming story of love, healing, and second chances. Beatrice Whitmore had always loved Christmas. Her isolated mansion in the Colorado mountains used to be the perfect setting for a warm celebration with friends and family. But since the tragic accident that took her husband's life 2 years ago, Christmas had become the date she dreaded. It was a painful reminder of the unbearable loss she carried with her. This year, once again, Beatrice decided to spend Christmas alone. She didn't want to get involved in festive events, nor see the people around her smiling when she felt the weight of loneliness in every corner of her house. The Christmas lights on the tree seemed duller than ever. The shine of gold and silver that once enchanted her soul now only blinded her further to joy. She was determined to occupy herself with work. Going over reports and resolving last-minute issues, Beatrice tried in every way to avoid the growing emptiness within her. Christmas no longer meant anything to her, but she still felt an obligation to do something in honor of her late husband, who had loved the holiday season so much. However, her assistant convinced her to do something different. Something that would at least distract her from the pain for a few hours. Beatrice, though reluctant, signed up to help at a charity event for the less fortunate, with no intention of participating actively. She just wanted to keep her mind occupied. Andrew Sullivan, like Beatrice, had once been a lively person. When his wife, Sarah, died in the same accident that took Beatrice's husband's life, he too became lost in a spiral of pain and loneliness. The loss transformed him from an outgoing, optimistic person into someone who could barely recognize his own reflection in the mirror. Like Beatrice, Andrew shut himself off from the world, distancing himself from celebrations and trying to cope with the pain through work. He didn't want to know about Christmas or festivities. He avoided everything related to the holiday and steered clear of social gatherings. However, his sister convinced him to participate in a Christmas charity event in their town. She had planned a dinner to raise funds and needed his help to ensure that the donations were properly delivered. Andrew didn't want to go, but he knew it would be difficult to refuse. Though reluctant, he found himself driving into the small town for the charity event, trying to hide the emptiness he felt inside. He was already mentally prepared for yet another Christmas alone, with no hope that things would change. As he walked through the corridors of the hall, he spotted a woman in the corner, her eyes lost in memories, with a familiar expression. She seemed distracted, almost as if wondering where the joy had gone, where the reason to continue was. Andrew felt a shiver, and without knowing why, his steps led him toward her. Andrew approached Beatrice, not quite sure what made her seem so familiar. As he got closer, their eyes met, and both felt as if something deep was being revealed. The pain they carried was almost tangible, and for a moment, words failed them. Beatrice, realizing she was being watched, lifted her eyes and saw the man before her. His gaze was distant, but something in his expression made her feel an immediate connection. Andrew seemed like her, burdened with sadness and loneliness. He smiled gently, a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes but still touched Beatrice in an unexpected way. Are you hiding from Christmas too? Andrew asked, trying to break the ice. Beatrice let out a short, almost lifeless laugh. Looks like we're in the same boat. They sat down at a table away from the hustle of the event, both reluctant but unable to resist the connection beginning to form between them. At first, they spoke of trivial things, like the weather and the charity event, but soon, the words began to flow more naturally. I lost my husband. 2 years ago, Beatrice said, the pain still etched in her words. Since then, Christmas has never been the same. Andrew, with a deep, dark look, gazed at her. He felt the same pain, and though the weight of his own loss was something he never shared with anyone, here was a woman who understood exactly what he felt. I lost my wife, Sarah. In the same accident. You seem to understand. Beatrice gave a slight nod, her eyes welling up. They were finally allowing themselves to feel each other's pain, something they had avoided for so long. The charity event was a bigger success than either of them had expected. Beatrice and Andrew, initially reluctant to get involved, ended up working together to organize the donations, assist with the deliveries, and even help with the Christmas dinner. It was a sense of accomplishment they hadn't felt in a long time. But as the days passed, something began to change in both of them. Beatrice started to feel that perhaps Andrew was not just another reminder of her pain, but someone who could help her rebuild a small piece of her own happiness. She observed him from a distance, admiring his quiet way of caring for others without expecting anything in return. Andrew, in turn, began to open up more. His conversations with Beatrice became more frequent, and though the grief was still present, he realized that she brought a sense of peace, something he hadn't felt in a long time. In his heart, he knew he was growing attached to her in a way he hadn't anticipated. It was more than a friendship. Something more was beginning to blossom. One calm afternoon, while they were organizing some of the donations, Beatrice asked, Andrew, how do you manage to cope with all of this? How do you keep moving forward, even with all this pain? He paused for a moment, gazing at the Christmas lights that shimmered in the room. I don't know. I guess I just tried to keep moving. But you seem to have a strength that I haven't found in myself yet. Beatrice smiled, but her voice was filled with vulnerability. I just shut myself off. I thought the pain would go away, but I think I'm starting to realize it's not about letting it go. Maybe it's about learning to live with it. Andrew felt that these words spoke directly to his heart. They were both in the same place, both trying to find a way to happiness again, even with the scars of the past. Christmas Day arrived, and Beatrice's mansion was as silent as ever. The Christmas tree was beautifully decorated, but the house seemed distant from any sense of warmth or joy. Beatrice sat alone by the fireplace, watching the flames dance, but unable to feel the magic of the moment. Christmas, for her, was just another day of longing. Andrew, on the other hand, had arrived early to help with the final preparations for the charity event. Though he was involved in the work, he still carried the pain of losing Sarah. He watched Beatrice's mansion, feeling the pressure of the emptiness she, too, felt. But unlike Beatrice, he still tried to engage with others, as an attempt to find some light in the darkness. That afternoon, Andrew noticed that Beatrice was pulling away from the party. She wasn't joining the others, and her eyes seemed lost in a distant place. When he approached her, she lifted her head, and they looked at each other in silence for a moment. I don't know how to be part of this, Beatrice confessed, her voice barely audible. Christmas doesn't make sense to me anymore. I can't help but think that all that's left for me is loneliness. Andrew watched her with empathy. I know how you feel. But maybe instead of running from it, we should try to find something good, even if it's small. I don't know what the future holds, but what I can say is that, here and now, you're not alone. He invited her to take a walk outside, away from the party, for a break from the weight of the night. Beatrice hesitated but saw the sincerity in his eyes. She accepted the invitation, and together they walked into the mansion's garden, where the snow fell gently, creating a serene scene. As they walked in the snow, the silence between Beatrice and Andrew felt more comfortable. The cold air couldn't take away the warmth of the connection that was forming between them. They walked to a small cabin at the back of the garden, where they sat on wooden benches and gazed at the stars in the clear winter sky. "I used to come here with my husband. He loved watching the stars," Beatrice said, her voice soft and nostalgic. "It was our place. I don't know how I feel here now." Andrew, hearing Beatrice mention her husband, felt a tightness in his chest. He knew exactly what she meant. "I understand. It's hard, isn't it? Everywhere you go, everything seems to remind you of what you've lost. But maybe this is the moment to let those memories coexist with the present." Beatrice looked at him, surprised by the depth of his words. She hadn't expected someone who was living the same grief to offer this kind of understanding. She realized that perhaps she was starting to see Andrew in a new light, not just as someone who had also suffered, but as someone who could help her heal. "Have you ever thought about believing in love again someday?" Andrew asked, his voice filled with vulnerability. "I know it seems impossible, but maybe it's possible to feel something again." Beatrice felt a soft beat in her heart. She had never thought she could open her heart again, but what she felt there with Andrew was something new, something unexpected. She still didn't know if she was ready, but she couldn't deny how much his presence made her feel less alone. She looked at him with a sad but genuine smile. "I don't know. But maybe, who knows, in the future." They stayed there in silence, sharing a quiet moment of healing, with the snow falling around them like a perfect metaphor for the transformation beginning to happen in their hearts. The morning after their walk to the cabin, the sense of calm and closeness between Beatrice and Andrew still lingered in the air. They shared longer glances, deeper conversations, but something remained between them, a barrier they both knew they hadn't overcome yet. The past, with its pain and loss, was always there, like a shadow, ready to invade moments of vulnerability. Beatrice, though she was starting to open her heart to Andrew, still found herself tormented by the memories of her husband Charles. All day long, she tried to push these memories away, but they invaded every corner of the mansion, every familiar sound. She felt that, even with Andrew by her side, the weight of losing Charles still held her back from moving forward. That afternoon, while they were organizing the Christmas dinner in the main hall, Beatrice stepped away for a moment. She walked into the garden, where she found a wooden bench covered in snow, and sat down alone, her eyes fixed on the emptiness. Andrew followed her, sensing that something was troubling her. When he approached, he gently asked, "Beatrice, what's going on? I thought we were doing well." She looked at him, her eyes heavy with sadness. I don't know if I can keep going like this, Andrew. Every moment I spend with you, I feel like I'm betraying my husband's memory. What are we doing? I don't know if I'm ready for this anymore." Andrew sat beside her, trying to find the right words. "I know how hard it is, Beatrice. I've also lived with that feeling of not being able to move forward, like I was abandoning Sarah's memory. But maybe that doesn't mean forgetting. It means moving forward with the truth of what we've lost, while still being able to love again." Beatrice turned to him, tears threatening to fall. "I don't know if I can, Andrew. The emptiness he left is too great." Andrew gently touched her hand. "I know it's hard. But I also know that, no matter how much the past will always follow us, love can, somehow, set us free. I believe what we're doing isn't forgetting, but healing." Beatrice didn't know what to say. Andrew's words touched her deeply, and she knew he was right. But there was still something inside her, a quiet resistance that made her pull back. She sighed, feeling the weight of the memories, but also the lightness his presence gave her. They sat in silence for a long moment, both reflecting on what they were truly feeling. Beatrice didn't know what the next step would be, but one thing was certain. This Christmas had already brought something she hadn't expected. A chance to start over, even if it was difficult. Christmas Day finally arrived. Beatrice's mansion was vibrant with lights and decorations, but to her, the Christmas spirit still felt distant. She was caught in an internal dilemma. The pain of loss which had controlled her life for so long still held her captive, but at the same time, there was something in Andrew that made her feel alive again, something she never imagined she could feel. Andrew, for his part, felt the same way. For weeks, he had tried to maintain emotional distance, avoiding giving in to this new connection. But as the days passed, he realized that the only way to move forward was to allow himself to feel, even though it was risky. However, the weight of Sarah's loss still tormented him. He always felt guilty for moving on so quickly. What if it's too soon? He thought. What if Beatrice is just another step in my attempt to heal a broken heart, not something real? But as he watched Beatrice interact with the people around her, he knew this was different. Something between them was starting to grow, and it couldn't be ignored. Beatrice was preparing for the Christmas dinner when Andrew entered the room, finding her alone, gazing at the decorated tree. He slowly approached, watching her in silence until she noticed him and smiled, though her eyes still carried conflicting emotions. "You seem lost in thought," Andrew said softly, sitting next to her. She looked at him, her expression now more serene, but with a hint of vulnerability. "I was thinking about what you said that night, about moving forward. I feel so guilty. What am I doing? What does this mean? I don't know if I'm capable of accepting this." Andrew looked at her, fully understanding what she was going through. "Beatrice, what you're doing isn't wrong. You're allowing the pain of the past to coexist with what's possible now. Love doesn't erase memories, but it can, yes, heal the wounds. I know this because I'm feeling it with you. And as scary as it may seem, maybe it's time to allow things to unfold as they should." Beatrice felt a wave of emotions. She knew, in some way, that what was happening between them was real. It was frightening, but also liberating. "What if I'm not able to move on?" she asked, more to herself than to him. "Beatrice, moving on doesn't mean forgetting the past. It means allowing yourself to live in the present, without the weight of what was. It's not about replacements, but about accepting that the future can bring happiness too." Andrew's words penetrated her heart, and she felt something break inside her. Something she had feared, the fear of loving again, was, in fact, giving her the chance to rebuild her life. That night, during the Christmas dinner, Beatrice and Andrew shared a moment of silence, but one filled with understanding. Looking around at the others at the table, she realized that what was growing between her and Andrew wasn't just a temporary comfort. It was real. And that, in itself, was a miracle. The day after the Christmas dinner was quiet, but Beatrice felt something different in the air. For the first time in a long time, she woke up with a genuine smile. The sense of emptiness that had always accompanied her was beginning to fade. Andrew was there by her side, and that, in itself, was a foundation she never imagined she would rebuild. They met in the morning near the living room window, watching the snow fall gently outside. The cold weather couldn't dampen the warmth she felt inside, something that grew with every moment spent with Andrew. She knew that Christmas still had its challenges, but for the first time, she felt like it could be different. She could accept the present, without fear of the future. "I was thinking. Maybe from now on, life doesn't have to be marked only by the pain of what we've lost," Beatrice said, her voice soft but with a conviction she didn't know she still had. "Maybe it's time to make room for something new." Something good. Andrew looked at her, with a smile that reflected the renewed hope they were both starting to feel. I think so too. Life isn't going to stop being hard, Beatrice. But we can find ways to live in it, to grow together. That moment, there in the room illuminated by the fire and the Christmas lights, was all they needed. The weight of the pain they both carried was still present, but what was between them now was stronger. The love, the acceptance, and the understanding they had found in each other would help them move forward. Beatrice looked at Andrew, feeling a warmth in her chest. I don't know what the future holds for us, but somehow, I think what we've started here together is a beginning. Andrew reached out his hand to hers, his gesture silent but full of meaning. I'm here. Let's see what comes next. As the snow continued to fall outside, Beatrice and Andrew walked together toward the future, knowing that, despite the pain that might still arise, they were now ready to face everything hand in hand. The Christmas that once represented an irreparable loss had now become the mark of a new beginning, a new chapter, where love bloomed again in place of pain. And so, after many challenges, Beatrice and Andrew finally realized that while the past cannot be erased, the future still holds surprises. Christmas, once a symbol of pain, transformed into the mark of a new beginning, one filled with love, hope, and unexpected healing. They found the strength to move forward, not alone, but together. Now the question remains: do you also believe that love can emerge in the darkest of times? If you were moved by this story, like, share, and leave a comment. We'd love to hear your thoughts. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you won't miss the next emotional stories. After all, love always finds a way, and the next story might be even more surprising. See you in the next video.